kind of establish my background. As Mark said, Reprints Desk is a document delivery vendor. Primarily, we service a corporate library market, but we also have an academic document delivery service, thank you, that is aimed at ILL librarians that's starting to take off. So today I have the pleasure of asking the ultimate close-the-loop question, to use Tim O'Reilly's phrase, once they find it, then what? And as I started to work on this, I was a little concerned that perhaps I was asking too obvious a question. And then I remembered an anecdote that I heard recently about a European researcher who had seen an interesting paper on a social site. It wasn't in a formal bibliography, but he really wanted to read this paper. So he looked up the journal on the web. He found the paper on the publisher's website. However, he was traveling. He was off-site, and even though his institution has a subscription to this journal, he was not able to get past the pay-per-view option on the publisher's website. But he said he knew a secret. So he went to his community's preprint server, where he downloaded a flat PDF file. So he was able to read the paper, but he was still frustrated because it had low-resolution diagrams, hard-to-read algorithms. He couldn't link out from the references, and he had no access to the underlying data. So what he really wanted was the version of record on the publisher's website, but he couldn't get to it. So that's kind of what I'd like to talk about today. And, excuse me. So how you get to the content after you discover it, a lot of that depends on who you are. As we know from Simon and Alex's studies, not all readers are the same. There are many different routes to content, and who they are has a lot to do with it, how they connect to that found article. Are they a subscriber? Are they a non-subscriber? Are they in an academic environment, or perhaps they're a corporate bench scientist? Are they an institutional user, or are they a much more price-sensitive individual user? Also, where you are has a lot to do with your post-discovery environment. Are you on campus or off? Are you behind a corporate firewall? Are you in a mediated library environment, or are you a do-it-yourselfer, or are you in a self-service library environment? Are you on a mobile device or at your PC? Are you in the US or the EU, or are you in an environment where, shall we say, they have less sensitivity to copyright issues? I'd like to take a moment to talk about mediated versus self-service. Mediation is certainly one of those pendulum items that swings back and forth over the years. A couple of years ago, among our customers, it was a big move to self-service. Libraries were being closed down right and left. Corporations were either consolidating them all into one site or getting rid of them altogether, and so the move was towards self-service. These days, I would say that the vast majority of our customers provide something of a hybrid between mediation and unmediated. Discovery is probably self-serve, but connecting the reader to the article that they've discovered and want to read is usually heavily mediated. And that is primarily because of cost control. An information professional is in a much better position to find the right source that meets their usage rights and their price points. And the other big reason is that the increasing complexity of rights management these days. So who and where and finally what? Obviously, the reader wants to read the article, but perhaps they don't have subscription-based access. Are they in a position to make a pay-per-view purchase? Or perhaps they're a student or a scientist at a small startup, or maybe they're an unaffiliated blogger, and for their purposes, a lower-cost short-term rental would meet their needs to be able to read that article. Do they want to share that article publicly or privately? Are they at an institution that has an annual copyright license from the CCC, for example, that allows them to share internally with colleagues? Do they want to repurpose that content, and do they need to get permission to use a table or chart in something that they're working on? An earlier presentation I was at today said that publishers are starting to see more revenue coming through permissions as content is more chunked up, which I thought was very interesting. Is the need reactive use? Do they need to provide a copy of an article to a physician as part of a medical affairs response, or is it part of a regulatory submission? And finally, do they need it for commercial purposes? Before I get to that, I want to say that all of the information professionals that we work with, they define post-discovery access by going through a whole series of access options. First, they'll look to see if they have a subscription. That's the obvious and easy one. Then they might look to see, is this article available as open access? Then they might go and look to see in their print collection if the article is available in their print collection. Perhaps they have a preferred pricing with that publisher because they have a prepaid deposit account or they have tokens. They will look at that. Perhaps rentals work for them. And then finally, they might send it off to a document delivery vendor who will go and find the article for them. So they look at all the right spots, again, depending on their rights and their price points. Turnaways happen all the time. Maybe that customer, the reader, like the researcher in my example, he got to the publisher's front door. He knocked on the door. He could see that article he wanted, but he was turned away. It happens all the time. Maybe somebody's off-site. Maybe they're on a mobile device and they're just having a hard time engaging with the content because of the mobile device. Maybe they forgot their username and password. But I talked to a lot of publishers, and I know that several of them spend a lot of time looking at the IP addresses of the turnaways. Because what they say is that it is a lot easier to grow sales with an existing customer, a reader who's already come to visit your website, than it is to go out and find a brand new customer. And I think it's an important point to say that perhaps that turnaway reader doesn't need a subscription. Maybe they don't have enough usage for that title to merit a subscription. Perhaps a token package would better meet their needs, or perhaps a rental. Again, all readers are not the same. So why do readers work with third parties, such as my company? It used to be more around discovery and distribution, though, as Simon and Alex have shown, discovery is very sophisticated these days and almost reads our minds, and distribution is well in hand. I would say these days it has a lot more to do with use rights and managing the back-end details. And we often describe what we do is providing a better way through the paywall for readers. In other words, we can recognize the readers' workflow, where they are, what their price points are, what usage rights they may have. Certainly, information professionals like cross-publisher invoicing, invoices that are extremely detailed and provide cost centers and all those other items that make it easier for a librarian to justify their expenses. They very much like cross-publisher reporting, which comes in very handy when it comes time to make content acquisition decisions every year. And the focus for these mediated readers usually is not on browsing. They've found the article they want. They want that article and they want it quickly. In DocDel land these days, the norm is 5 minutes, 10 minutes top, 24/7. That's what the expectation is. And then also for our corporate customers, one of their big needs is for privacy. As you can imagine, pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies, they're very sensitive about having outsiders know what their current research focus is. So they come to third parties who will respect their privacy. So I would encourage publishers to follow Simon's advice here. This is in Simon's study. I don't think he spoke to it today. But distribute your XML headers to discovery platforms and collaborate with Crossref and library technology vendors and work with all the major gateways and ANIs. And I would add a fourth point here. Support standards development, join NISO or follow NISO. For example, right now NISO is working on enhancing the metadata standard that you can give to Crossref and to other gateways that will identify at the article level whether or not an article is available as open access, which is increasingly important for metadata readers as the number of hybrid open access journals expands like crazy. And then I would certainly encourage publishers to support all legitimate access. The publisher's website is not the only way to get to a version of record, and it's not the only way to generate a royalty payment. So I would encourage you to work with trusted downstream vendors, establish reasonable article rates and revisit them on a regular basis because they're probably in a lot of different channels, and if you don't visit them lately, you often end up with inconsistent pricing. And the lack of consistent pricing leads to price shopping, which I believe is a step on the road to piracy. I think the biggest cause of piracy is a lack of easy to implement and easy to understand usage rules or access rules and reasonable pricing. Because I believe that most of the customers that the people in this room service, they are intellectual property producers themselves. They're very sensitive to copyright issues. They just want to know what the rules are and how to get to the article. And I would also suggest that usage is more than downloading a PDF. I know that that's how everybody marks success these days, so many downloads. But I think it's more than downloading a PDF. I think it is meeting the reader's needs within their preferred workflow, recognizing their specific usage rights and their price points. So I say don't be a content silo. Remember, most readers are IP producers, and don't miss the opportunities to engage with readers wherever they may be and however they find your content. So thank you.